Hi, this is my Thomas Bokade, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. Today I want to deal, therefore, as I said, to continue with the topic of praise and worship. But today I want to deal with common distractors during the worship service in the church. Common distractors during the worship church service. Now, I want to emphasize that there are things that disturb us when we're busy praising. There are things that disturb us when we're busy worshiping in the church, in a service when we are worshiping and praising. And I want to emphasize and speak about those things so that these things can be removed. We may deal thoroughly with these things so that they may not disturb us going forward anymore. This is very important. But I want to emphasize also that praise is very important. Worship is very important. So therefore, we cannot allow distractors in our midst when we are worshiping or praising God. And that is why we are addressing this topic today, and I hope that will help you. First of all, uncoordinated sound of instruments, including excessive loud sound, including excessive blast of instruments. And I'm sure you would understand this as well, that when the instruments are not coordinated enough, they're very noisy. They're very distracting because you cannot focus on the praise and worship when the instruments are making such a noise. And I must really emphasize that the people that are dealing with media in media department, sound check is very important. It's very important that you take time in connecting your instrument, come early, make sure that you test your sound thoroughly, and stand back into into the pews where the people will be sitting. Listen to the sound thoroughly, and please be in the shoes of the people that will be in church to make sure that the sound is clear enough. The sound is not too noisy. The sound is not distracting, because if the sound is distracting, then people are not going to be able to praise and worship because it is going to distract them. And I must emphasize, because that happens quite a few times in different churches. You arrive, you listen, the sound is blasting the ears. The sound is disturbing, actually, because it is too loud, and therefore it's distracting, and it's not coordinated, therefore, with the worship, and it disturbs that you cannot have a deeper moment of worship. And that is very key. And I emphasize that in churches, let's make sure that our sound is tested thoroughly and properly in good time, and we are able to correct it earlier on, even before people arrive. And that's very, very important. Secondly, the worship leader jumping from one song to another, not allowing people to soak deeper into worship. This, I know many people may not understand what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about whereby you're leading people into worship. And as you lead people into worship, 1 second you are leading people in this particular song, and you change it completely and move into another song of a different rhythm completely, and a different lyrics completely, a different song of different sound completely. And as you do so, you're making people to stagger from one place to another, people to try to focus in what you're doing. Because if you are wanting people to worship, you would love to lead people into praise and worship. So therefore, go deeper into one song and until it soaks people into worship, until it gets people to a level where they can worship on their own. They can start speaking to their God. But when you jump from one song to another, you're distracting the people, because people have started this song and they want to connect through this song, but you move on to another song quickly, and while they're still trying to connect, starting another song. And I'm sure you may understand what I'm talking about, but some of you may not understand what I'm talking about. But it's disturbing from praise and worship leaders from moving from one song to another while people are trying to concentrate and soak into worship. You're moving from one song to another, and therefore you are actually disturbing or distracting them. And that is very, very important that we mention that. The other thing is consistent cutting of songs during the climax of the worship. And this may be related to exactly what I've just said right now, that when people are getting now soaked in this particular song, you're not sensitive enough as a praise and worship leader, and you stop it, you cut it, and you cut it abruptly to a level where but people are actually anticlimaxed in worship, because there are people that soak deeper, slowly with the very same song, and you need to really hum it through until a point where people are actually able to start worshiping their God, to start connecting with their God on their own, and it don't interrupt them at all, and it don't disturb them at all. And when people are deeper into worship as well, don't interrupt them by starting another song that will actually take them out of the mood of worship. But for this that I'm saying, it is going to need somebody who is more spiritually inclined, somebody who understands exactly what worship is all about. Because if you know what worship is all about, you'll exactly understand exactly what I'm saying. There are many people that may not understand at all what I'm saying, but yes, I'm at peace with that. But I want to emphasize that if you understand what I'm talking about as a praise and worship leader, so please don't disturb people and don't disturb them by anticlimaxing them in worship. The other thing is inconsistent mixing of worship and praise songs, breaking the flow of the worship. And some of you will understand me, some of you may not understand me, but I hope you do understand that when you are singing a dancing song, praise, the song that wants people to be free to dance and so on, then you get them into worship, which will mean that people now soak and in a very worship mood, get into the Holy of Holies. And while they are there, then you anticlimax them again with a dancing song. Out of a song of worship, you take them out with a praise. And while they're in praise, you get them into worship. While they're in worship, you get them into praise. And because the songs are not lined up properly, your songs are not in line to actually get the people to flow. And there's no flow anymore because people are actually moving from in and out of praise, in and out of worship, and different songs that are not in line with each other. I hope this is well understood as well as I'm saying it. But if you may not understand me, please feel free to talk to us. We may explain this to you. Inbox us. We will actually explain this to you, what we are trying to say here as Church Governance Solutions. But I hope this is clear as well. So don't anticlimax the people. If there's a word that I want you to remember, is that when people are worshiping, don't anticlimax them. And that's very, very important that we mention that we may understand that inconsistent mixing of praise and worship songs is actually anticlimaxing the people as well. Now, it breaks the flow. It makes the people not to flow with it. And as I said, when people are in worship, they want to flow in it. And that's very, very important. But also, I want to mention that too much obsession in displaying good voices that than allowing flow of the Spirit of God. Because there are many people that would actually become too obsessed about how nice the voices are and so on. But sometimes the very hoarse voice that leads the people into worship, don't worry about it as long as people are actually got into the flow of the worship. And this is very important. And I must mention this, that there are people with hoarse voices that may not really have good voices at all, but they're able actually to lead people into proper praise, into the proper worship as well. But when we are too obsessed about too much melodies of great music, like people that will sing like birds and angels, and we are too obsessed about that, there may be the very same people that have good voices that are not good enough in worship. So therefore, with their good voices, but they're not able to lead people into praise and worship once they use. So therefore, somebody with a hoarse voice, but that knows worship, somebody who's prayerful enough, somebody who knows how to lead people into praise, you may find they do even much more better than somebody with beautiful voices, but yet cannot lead people in praise and worship. So that should actually be emphasized. That should be known and understood as well, because it's very key to understand these things and be able to do things much more appropriately, because praise and worship is very key in our churches to lead it in an appropriate manner. There are also these uncontrolled movements by children and adults during praise that distract the flow as well, whereby when people are worshiping and there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of noise of children walking around and making noise, or even playing around the environment, well, what it does, it actually dilutes the environment. It actually breaks the flow and disturbs the environment. Because remember that the worship goes along with focusing. Without focus, it's difficult to worship. And therefore, it is very important, therefore, that any distraction of focus must be removed in an environment of worship. Because if you allow distractions of noise and disturbances of focus, therefore, you're not going to be able to actually focus in worship. And I must emphasize this, that's very important. And I must actually emphasize that we remove noises, we remove movements as well, and make sure that people can focus and they're not disturbed, because in so doing, therefore, you're going to get the people to worship God even much more better. And that's one thing that we want to emphasize. The presence of a lot of people who are spectators instead of worshiping, that disturbs as well. That distracts in a church whereby people are spectating instead of participating. And this is very important. And I must really say that if we are leading worship, if we are running praise and worship in churches, we should actually really prioritize getting people's involvement, getting people to participate, and therefore make sure that we sing very common songs that everybody can sing. We sing songs that are actually known by many, because that will actually make people to focus and it will make people to participate as well. But when you come up with songs that people don't know, what it does, it actually makes them to spectate. It makes them to watch and not participate. And when people spectate, watch and not participate, therefore it distracts others as well. It makes people not to participate more deeply and not to be much more involved in worship. And that disturbs. And I must emphasize this, that is very important, therefore, that we deal with this type of a distraction by making sure that we sing common songs that people know, that everybody will participate. And therefore, we eliminate the participation, the spectating, and improve the participation. Because when there's a more participation, then worship is actually brooded in there. And I must also emphasize that these days we are disturbed as well by gadgets like cell phones, whereby people are busy with their phones during the time of worship. And that's a distraction as well. Because when you are now busy with your phone while people are worshiping and so on, you're not only disturbing yourself or distracting yourself, but you are actually distracting the people next to you as well. Because instead of focusing, you are disturbing them. You are actually looking at your phone and playing with your phone while people are focusing here to pray, and you are disturbing others as well. And I must emphasize that our gadgets of technology, we love them, they are good, but they can be distracting when it comes to worship as well, because there are many people that focuses on phones. There are times where during praise and worship, the phone ringings and people take that call and walk outside the church. And when the phone rings by itself, that ringing disturbs the people around as well. And you walking around going to take that call disturbs others as well. But I must emphasize that praise and worship, therefore, switch off your phones, make sure that you keep them on silent if you can, please, and make sure that you are totally sold out into praise and worship and become involved. And that becomes very important, and you cannot be distracted with that. I want to end up here today. Your host, Mike Spokane. Thank you very much for listening to us and being part of this great topic. And I'm tempted to continue with this type of a topic tomorrow. And please join us as we deal with this topic still of praise and worship. That's very, very key. And that's the reason that I want to deal with it once more tomorrow. Don't forget to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click that notification button. Be part of our videos that we are posting and learn out of them. And I believe that will be help to you and your church. And may the good Lord bless you as you continue listening to us as we teach these teachings. May the good Lord bless you, and allow me to say cheers for now.